Hey, it's producer Rob. We've got Jeff and we've got Bart over here.
Guys.
Thanks for tuning in. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, thank you very much.
Yes.
If you're listening to us right now, that means you're not seeing us, but you can see us if you want to. Just go to Jeep Beach Official on YouTube, and you'll be able to find out everything that we've done in the past, most of them anyway. We
That's
started
a scary
recording the
thought.
videos. Yeah. And if you are watching this and you want the audio portion of it, all your favorite podcast platforms will cover that.
Yes, it
So,
will.
ready for the show?
Ready.
You ready?
Yes,
We're ready.
ready.
Thanks for tuning in. Here we go.
It's now time for another episode of the Off-Road Toolbox. A Jeepers guide to everything off-road. Powered by Best Price Trailers.
Hey, y'all, what y'all up to?
Come on now. You're scaring that dude.
What am I doing?
You're scary. He gonna give him a heart attack, that old man over here. All right, welcome back.
We
Oh,
are
my
back
gosh.
for some more
Jeez.
chaos and craziness.
And it's a good thing we know somebody who works at a hospital. You,
I'm off duty right
you're
now.
off duty.
Yeah.
If you scare him into having some kind of episode,
I'm not giving them mouth to mouth.
Thank you. I don't. Yes. Just do the foot compressions.
the foot compressions,
Just put your foot on the chest and compress. No,
just get up like they do in New York, CPR in New York. Get up before you and die.
But anyhow,
not saying a word.
Not saying a word.
I got some funny stories. We're not going there.
See, now these are great stories. We should have
this
the
is
story
the
time
stuff
with.
we got to have.
Yeah.
Story time. We're gonna do Bart's story time every.
Do you remember the precordial thump?
Oh yeah. We still do it sometimes when they're in VTAC.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what the heck you just said.
Well,
VTAC,
You're
precordial.
talking about CPR and a guy going down in New
CPR.
Yorkers. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
So you taking your ball your fist up and you
Yeah.
hit him in the sternum, just wham, and it gets the heart to recycle.
So a couple policemen
Hopefully.
who weren't trained in it tried it a long time ago.
Oh,
And I
they
was
broke a rib,
oh yeah.
crushed the rib.
You know, hit him again. You know,
Jesus.
and it was legit heart attack. Yes, it was. But
But now we got AEDs
yes,
and all this.
yes,
so.
yes. So I digress.
You digress.
So, guys, welcome back.
Yes,
we
we're
are
back.
ready to get into this now.
I think we are.
And today's episode,
We're going to get back to the veterans because, you know, if it wasn't for the veterans, the people that have come through our country and supported us and defended us, we wouldn't be here right now.
so we're getting real now.
Yeah, and it's kind of somber at times.
Yes.
I mean, if you really stop and think about it, many kids went away as kids and never came back, or
Yes.
they went as kids and came back as adults with a lot of issues. Even nowadays, we still have
Right.
that issue. So
it's not all people coming back with Jeeps
no.
and
But,
some
Jeep,
of their.
but Jeep did come from out of the military.
Yes.
So that's kind of why we're tying them both together. We're kind of going to go down the road of, you know, the history of the Veterans Day, where
Yes.
it came from. Basically, it started in 1919. It was President Wilson proclaimed it as the first commemorative of Armaments Day.
Yes.
And he used to us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride of the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for victory, both because of things from which it has fed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy and peace with justice in the councils of the nations. So basically, we defend ourselves and we help defend other countries that have the like thought process of us.
So why is November 11th? How did that come about?
I'm trying to remember.
I say because it was on what they said it was the 11th hour on
Right.
the 11th day
Day.
of the 11th month.
Right. And as time had gone on, it had changed.
Yes.
In, what was it, June 4th of 2026, it was changed to another date.
Yep.
And as time has gone on, they've actually brought it back. I forget when it was. Was it 1938?
Yes.
They approved in May that the 11th of November of each year was the legal holiday and would be celebrated in that way or remembered in that way.
Yeah. So, but it started with World War I,
Yes.
which was the war to end all wars. And it's a war that probably doesn't get covered much. It was a nasty war. It was an unbelievably horrible battle. There's no good battles, but you're talking mustard gas, nerve agents, artillery to a new thing, evolution of tanks, evolution of aircraft. It gets down to even the design of the trenches and trench warfare.
Trench warfare, that's where that came
that's
from.
where that
So
came
even so, in the old days when they lined up and shot each other, which made no sense to me, even Civil War, you lined up,
and
yeah, the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that. I mean, I was, my small unit tactics are way different. So, but we've evolved from them. But what occurred in World War I was unbelievable. And then, of course, we got into it late, but we sent a lot of people over.
a lot of people didn't come home.
A lot of people, or came home with a lot of issues.
A lot of issues, missing limbs.
Yes.
Mental issues.
Yes, shell shock was the big
shell
one
shock,
because
yeah.
of all the artillery.
A loud noise would set them off.
Yeah.
We call it PTSD.
Yeah, it was shell
Back then,
shock.
they didn't have PTSD.
No.
one knew. This all new stuff.
So in my studies, when I had to go to counter IED, I had to learn about blast mitigation. I had to learn everything about explosives and how they worked. But it goes, I mean, they sent me all the way back to, actually the Chinese when they did things and then medieval times. But World War I was a big case study on blast effects and how the shock waves. And so how they actually had to change the trenches. So if you had a trench and you changed direction and you made a curve, that blast would follow the curve and wipe out more people.
Right.
Whereas if you did a 90 degree and a 90 degree, almost like putting in a 90 degree elbow in PVC,
Yep,
you
exactly.
did those 90 degrees,
It stopped it.
it stopped it right there. So walls, a lot of things that were learned from then were applied to even today when they're like embassies, and there's a lot of buildings that we build and you may not notice, but there's some blast mitigation.
Oh,
So if you know what to look for, you'll see it, I mean, so how you could deflect things from World War I, from that, atrocious time, gas mask.
I mean, back then there were no rules. There were no rules whatsoever.
No rules in warfare.
And as
no.
time has gone on, they've kind of put rules out there, and we kind of follow them. But then again, certain terrorists and all that.
Oh, terrorists don't follow rules.
Yeah.
If we're dealing with terrorists, yes, you don't follow any treaties. Geneva, that's out the window.
Yeah, Geneva Convention, it's out the window.
Yes, and it's drastically changed. But that war was a horrible. They even had to make gas masks for the horses and mules. Think about that.
Mm-hmm. I know. We even have some of that. It's not mustard gas, but there are some chemicals out there.
So a lot of the chemicals, the VX, the sarin, I mean, I can go down the list, but bore you folks. But so a lot of the chemical agents were actually from then.
Oh yeah.
And some of them don't ever break down, which is bad. Or 50 or 100 years, it takes them to break down. But we learned, and that's when supposedly it was outlawed. But there's been terrorist attacks where they've used chemical agents or
they found
nerve
how to
agents.
make it. And,
Yes.
I mean, Saddam
Yes.
Hussein, perfect example. He was making his own sarin gas.
So people are going to argue about that. I'm a W. I'm a witness.
Mm-hmm.
There was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I have photographs that were unclassified because we took them. So they didn't get classified. We also know the trail that they ran. They went from Iraq to Syria.
Yep.
And I can tell you this, Saddam's daughter was in that convoy doing stuff. So there's a lot of things so from World War I, you're right. There's chemical agents, there's warfare, there's things that have occurred that still apply today. And that was a horrible, horrible war. And we always hoped we'd never get back into another one.
We're walking a tight line at times. Sometimes,
Even today, people don't understand how volatile things could be. As more civilized as we've gotten, but there are people that hate us, or there's other people who hate other people. That's been since caveman days, or you can go back to Cain and Abel, I mean, go back to any time and people have fought. It's just what level did they fight at? But getting back to, sorry folks, I digress, but Veterans Day came out of the sacrifices that Americans made on foreign soil to remember them so they're never forgotten.
Exactly.
And I think we don't study enough of history, or we don't study the right history. And we try to change history, but if you study history, you don't want to go there again. No. That's just.
I'm a history buff and I enjoy reading about it.
Yeah.
Just because I want to see what it was like back then. But then after I read it, I'm kind of like, I don't want to know anymore.
There's things we don't want to do anymore.
But
yes.
I want to learn from it. I want to learn
yes.
not to do this again.
Correct. And when the world called and America finally got involved, like they did in World War II, we sent our young. We sent everybody. Actually, we sent everybody.
Yeah, we had the draft and away they went.
And a lot of people, even though, volunteered. And it's just amazing of the American spirit or the American individual, and it's unbelievable.
The pride that was instilled into them to take America to the highest limit.
Because we were so unsophisticated back then. I mean, think about it. I mean, there was
no internet.
No social media. You lived on a small farm. You lived in a small town. You knew everybody. Education levels. I mean, a lot of kids only went to school to the 6th grade.
Yep.
You know, if you're lucky, maybe went to middle school or high school. Very, few went to college compared to, people are guaranteed a college degree today if you want one. It's so different. And then to go from there, and you're going to sign up and you're going to go across the world over to someplace else.
Yeah. And even in just the 50 years that I've been able to know what's going on,
yeah,
it's changed tremendously. I mean, for instance, when you were a kid, when that traffic light came on or street light came on, where were you supposed to be at?
Home.
At home.
If the street light came on, that was our signal to go home. And yeah,
we don't have that anymore. You knew where all the kids were because all the bikes were parked in front of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
or you could hear them, or your mom and dad did things. But just saying. So here's a day remember our veterans, and it started with World War I, and I hope it's never repeated. And it's a holiday that people should really look upon. And if you guys get a chance, read up on some of the battles and some of the things, because they're the Lost Battalion's actually an example. The battle in the Argonne Forest. There's so many battles that were just, and when I look at them now, again, I was the cop in the military, and then we did things, but tactics. I mean, a lot of tactics changed. And I mean, I get thrown into the mosh pit, but I had to study actually from the French and Indian War. All those wars I had to study and get brought up on.
Yeah.
But
there's all tactics that were used for protection of our country.
Yes, and it's just smuggling. We get into smuggling. Smuggling's been going around since.
Oh yeah, good. I know that.
Actually, so I know. So everything, even we go back to fur traders would smuggle or try to sneak past, the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. It was interesting as all those things apply and how they carry forward. And here's this day, like again, we're getting back to talking about Veterans Day and how it started World War I. The four-wheel drive was invented for World War I.
Yeah, because they had to be able to get around.
They couldn't.
They were using horses and carriage and all
mules.
that. It began, and
Correct.
then it became mechanized.
Yes.
And the mechanized, here came the Jeep.
Yeah, well, them it was four-wheel drive trucks were the first. The Jeep came out in World War II.
Yeah.
But the four-wheel drive truck came out over there, and then skinny tires, mud, everything else. Tanks came out, tracked vehicles. So a lot came out of it. But the four-wheel drive and how to drive four-wheel drive and its application started with the big emphasis was World War I.
Over there. And it's carried on ever since.
Yes, it has.
It's grown.
Yes.
It's changed. It's become.
Yes. Yeah, it's just different because I have a different perspective of it, and then a lot of other people. But I just wish people would study their history and learn about things. And go ahead
and give their day to the day.
Yes, and remember the guys and their families.
Yeah.
We have a little bit later story, but like I told you, the mother writes a letter to find out where her son was buried in France,
and that's
never
made it home.
Never made it home. Enlisted in the Marine Corps at 14 years old.
What was his name?
His name was John de Havilland.
John de Havilland.
John de Havilland. I got a picture of him,
Small, but...
Small. I can put it on
Here.
the thing, yeah.
Yeah, here, get
I can pass that up.
pass that around here.
Yep.
Okay, Aurora, see if you can focus in on this.
And we'll post this up on the page, too.
Yeah, I saved it. So these came from one of the guys I worked with, Jacques, was a SEAL. I took this from his page. So I actually had to blurt out his stuff because I didn't get permission to use all of his stuff. One of the jobs, Jacques had many jobs after he left the SEALs. He got injured, and like a lot of us, got into contracting, doing everything else. But one of the things, he wanted to give back to the military, believe it or not, after all the stuff that he's done. And he became like an assistant curator at one of the cemeteries / museums / memorials in France. And it was the Meuse Argonne Cemetery, where there's over 14,000 U.S. soldiers from World War I buried there. And he did research. And that's where that picture came from, was him. And the reason being is because it was John Franklin de Havilland, United States Marine Corps. He was in the 3-5. He enlisted at age 14. Silver Star at 15, and then the Belleau Woods battle, which was a very fierce battle. He and 2 others died. They were creeping up on a machine gun, the Germans, and died. He had just 16. He just turned 16. It was the next day after his birthday.
Oh, wow.
And he doesn't go home. I mean, 14 years old and enlisted in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
We're not talking Boy Scouts. We're not talking Cub Scouts. The United States Marines.
That's
And
hardcore.
You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
he goes overseas. And
Times were different back then.
Yes.
You know, kids were different back then.
It's-
Everybody had different, it was just a different way of life.
Yes.
Very
back in
much
those
so.
days.
Very,
you know.
it's, as I call it, very simple compared to very modern now. Whereas modern is
I can't see any of my kids enlisting in the Marine Corps.
no.
Never, much less at 20, 21. I can't see at 14, to do it. And some of them did it for work, for money, for jobs, or patriotism, or they wanted to make a difference. But in this one battle that they had, went on for 47 days, 14,000 people died. That's one battle.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable. I forgot how many were wounded. Again, this came from Jacques because he was a curator, and all he did was read files. He actually read some of the letters that they have were handwritten letters, from the parents or from them and everything else. And one of the things that, I found this all over the world, when you get outside of big cities and you get into small towns, villages, or hamlets, people are people, and people can be phenomenal no matter where I've been in the world. And there in France, Jacques tells me all the time, he goes, they hold the Americans in high regard, and they hold certain holidays where Americans died on their soil as very sacred.
So American soldiers they hold in high regard.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Let's
that's
not get confused with sometimes,
Germans.
you hear about just citizens going over to another countries.
I've
and
been
they're
over
like-
there, and like I said,
and they look at
if
you
I've been in the
like,
big,
yeah.
so if I've been in the big cities, have I been dissed? Yeah. But whenever I've gotten in the small towns, totally different. I
Yeah.
mean, it's amazing. And like what Jacques said here in this day was 500 were killed each day for 47 days. 500 people were killed.
Wow.
2,000 were wounded daily. Think of this. So the size of a city in 47 days is dead. A small city, or wounded and injured. It was just incredible. And he said one of the most unique things is when they actually held a vigil, a 24-hour vigil, and at the church, the people came out, said prayers, but they read all of the 14,264 names that were buried there at that cemetery.
Wow.
That's pretty moving. I don't think, again,
much
we do
so.
that for 9/11.
Yep.
You'll see 9/11 where we do
9/11,
that.
they ring a bell for
Yes.
each name.
Yeah, but can you imagine 14,246?
It's to me, it's unfathomable.
Yes,
I hope we never ever see anything like that.
correct.
I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's touching. It'll pull on you.
It's a great story for those that the Jeep community. We got to remember 4-wheel drive. Everything came out of the military. Our everything we do 4-wheel drive, and then the Jeep. The Jeep came from the military. That was World War II, and that was an iconic vehicle that is still today.
It's still it.
It's still it. Still is.
All right.
With that, everybody.
Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for their service.
Yes.
I want to thank for their families.
Yes.
That's the big thing right
Yes.
there, because families do miss their loved ones, and
And it's hard. And there's no instant communication back then. Letter could take a month to get to you.
Oh, longer.
Yes.
I mean, I was even in the military with the Navy.
Yeah.
And I'd get a letter that was written a month and a half.
Yeah.
So
In those days, it was way different. Nowadays, cell phones, FaceTime, instant messaging.
Sure.
satellite.
Right away.
Yep.
So with that, guys, reflect on the day and look back at all that's been done to give you what you have now, and bless them. With that,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
And there you have it. Don't you feel smarter now? We'll drop more knowledge on you soon. Thanks for listening to the Off-Road Toolbox, powered by Best Price Trailers.